hello and welcome everybody to our session called Culture Strategic Tools for Performance and Growth. Kind of a nice segue from the keynotes and our questions that were asked at the very end about how critical culture is as a performance and growth driver. We'll be exploring that today. So we'll start out with some welcome introductions, have a couple of quick polls, and then I will be turning the floor over to Seagrave and Kerry folks here to share their real-world journeys and how they've addressed and leveraged culture as a strategic tool. So we'll look at a couple of the things noted here: engagement focus groups, applied diagnostic, culture council, living the values, and then there will be just a lot of other practical examples. We have a little time for panel Q&A. Another Slido, so we'll see if that works, and I have some pre-populated questions for us. And we hope you have enough time to do a quick breakout activity. I know we're right before the happy hour, but all the more reason to meet your neighbors, right? Do a little activity before you go out. So let's get started with welcome and introduction. And then backward. There we go. We'll start with WMEP. This is our team here in Orange. We're a private nonprofit. I know you've already heard quite a bit about WMEP, some of the sponsors today, and probably saw some of our videos. So our mission is to help small mid-sized manufacturers in the state of Wisconsin grow and become more profitable. It's really quite simple. We're a mission-driven nonprofit, so we're able to offer a lot of extensive services and help, which is really aligned with my own personal values. So one of the reasons I work here for almost 10 years. We have a focus on growth operations and people. Those are kind of our categories of services. All of the consultants like myself bring experience from companies that we then apply to help our clients deliver practical solutions and measurable impact. That's really what it's all about at the end of the day for us. It's the impact to the client. We're measured on how many jobs we save or created, how much money we save, how well we did. So it's a little bit of a different model than a typical consultancy. And that's me down at the bottom, Crawford. I'm a senior consultant, and I lead up what's called talent and culture services. It's kind of all things people. But my entire career in manufacturing operations, I've worked for some larger companies like Rockwell Automation, started here in Wisconsin at Brady, spent many years at 3M, and then also was involved with a small startup in the touchscreen industry, which we sold to a strategic buyer in 2008, and I went along with that sale, which is a lot unusual, but that's what happened, and I spent 10 years there, and then I joined WMEP at the end of that time period. So large and small companies, always in manufacturing operations in general type roles. So I'd like to have our panelists and co-presenters introduce themselves and give you a little bit of background on what they're bringing to the culture discussion and a little bit about the company. We have one slide on each. So Deron, I'll let you start. I know it's behind you, so just you know who you are. Could you share your introduction a little bit about Kerry?
I can indeed. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I want to thank Carol for asking me to be part of the panel. It's pretty exciting to be able to share what we've collaborated on together at Kerry. My name is Deron. I have been with Kerry for only a year. Before that, I spent about 14 years at Johnsonville Sausage up in northeast Wisconsin, doing learning and development, building programs like the program that we're currently building at Kerry. Prior to that, I spent 20 years in the Navy, retired in 2006. So I've been in food and beverage manufacturing for about 20 years now, since I retired, and probably 90% of it has been in some form of development and learning or leadership roles within those organizations. My role at Kerry is a senior training specialist. My job is really tactical, to build work instructions to help people understand how to work, set up, tear down, and operate equipment. But based on my experience in development and learning and creating leadership programs, when I started, they asked me if I could do that for Kerry Ingredients. And I jumped at the opportunity to work with WMEP and their partners to develop a program.
And would you like to share a little bit about Kerry?
Yeah, absolutely. Kerry Ingredients, I think the thing that we say most about Kerry is that if you've eaten something today, there's about an 85 to 90% chance that there's a Kerry product in it somewhere, some way, some shape, some form. We are 21,000 strong, started in 1972 in County Cork in Kerry, Ireland, as a co-op. So a bunch of farmers got together and decided they wanted to do something with their milk different from just selling it to other people. And they really started in the food and beverage industry, using milk, cheese, butter, those kinds of things. They expanded in Europe, and then in 1987, they purchased the Jackson, Wisconsin plant from another producer of dry beverage. And we started there as a dry beverage manufacturing company, and we've continued with dry beverage, and we've expanded into some other things at Jackson. As a company, I think I said we've got 21,000 employees worldwide, and we're in food and beverages, supplements, pharma, and some pet industry products as well. If you've gone to a Quick Trip or Casey's and you've had a cappuccino, we probably made it at the Jackson facility. So we provide a lot of those beverages that you purchased at the convenience stores on the machines.
And I'll just add that although Kerry is a worldwide global company, for the Jackson site, typically WMEP works with clients that are 500 employees and under, and they kind of have their own culture and their own subset. So it's kind of a small company within a big company.
You can see up there our purpose, our vision, and our mission. For us, it's really about creating sustainable, nourishing products that support our customers and the environment. And we do a lot of research and development with our customers. That's a huge component of our business. The customer will come to us and say, hey, we want to extend the shelf life on this product. What do you have? And we will work with them and our R&D team to develop a product that will help them to sustainably extend their shelf life on their product or bring additional flavors to their product. Some of the big things that you probably had and that we have been involved in at the Jackson facility. Anybody had a Cheeto? Yeah, we make the cheese dust that goes on the Cheeto. Sun chips. Yeah, that's us. Yep. Exactly. You walk around with orange fingers. Idaho and potatoes. We have a lot of products that go into Idaho and potatoes. Liquid IV, which is huge on college campuses. They're one of our huge customers as well.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Ulisses, I'd like you to introduce yourself, and then I have the Seagrave slide on fire from history.
Good afternoon. Very happy to be here and share a little bit of our experience in this journey with you. I've been around for too many years to count. Most of it in manufacturing, from what we call a manufacturing engineer or a process engineer these days, and all the way to leadership positions. I start in Brazil, where I'm from. Right out of school, went teaching, because that was the only job I could get. And after that, I was recruited by General Motors in Brazil and worked with the power plant for a few years, moving to the component side of the business, what lately was known as Delphi Automotive. So it was a big conglomerate of making all kinds of parts and moving to vehicles. And through that association, I ended up going to Europe. Working out of Germany for a few years on a European position in logistics of all kinds, which is what they call a stress assignment. And it was stressful. From that, I came over to the US in '99, just in time to get rid of the 2000 buck. The 2000 buck, for the ones that have been around long enough to have experienced that. Much better buck than the last one we got. Here I work with different businesses, starting aluminum extrusion, making small and big pieces of aluminum for trucks, for construction, for furniture, and so on. And going into electronic controls, which is really my close to heart, system that go engineer. And for a few years as well, in a small company here that eventually was bought by Honeywell. And as part of that acquisition, I left the business and ended up going to work at Seagrave, making fireplaces. just to give you an idea how much I knew about fire trucks, I saw one of those big red scenes that go really fast down the road and make a lot of noise. And they too, I realized I knew nothing about it. It's a really different world, and this product is extremely specialized for many reasons, and extremely personal. People don't buy fire trucks because they're red or because they're white. They don't buy fire trucks because of the price we sell it for. They buy fire trucks because they trust it. Very much like I think you guys might be involved with building equipment for your facilities. You don't buy just the cheapest equipment you want to buy or you want to find. You buy someone you trust that's going to keep you operating and keep your people safe and give everybody the best shot of doing what they are there. Going into Seagrave a little bit, Seagrave is a 144 years old company. You know, it's amazing that has been around for so many years. Starting in Michigan, went to Ohio, and eventually here in Wisconsin, Lincolnville, which is just a straight west from Green Bay, about 35 miles or so. In Green Bay, the proximity of Green Bay is both a challenge for us and it's a blessing for us. You know, we have a great place where people want to live, but also great difficulty to attract talent. And that's why we got in this journey to try to change it. 144-year company, you can imagine how strong the culture is. Not necessarily good, but it's very strong. And to change it is a challenge. It's a challenge we have to face because the times are different. When I started working there 15 years ago, our average seniority of everybody that worked in the company was 25 years seniority. And people there working there were older than me when I started, and I didn't start yesterday. So now this is gone, you know, and likely not to come back. And we need a different type of culture to attract people, the talent that wants to live in that area, wants to enjoy the beauty of Wisconsin and all the good things we can have here, and make a product that matters. Fire trucks.
And that really is making a product that matters. I know that's the slogan and part of the model is to connect to the emotional piece of fire truck, very emotional. Thank you, I had to make sure while you were talking. So we're going to do a little bit of overview of company culture and then go into some examples here. But I thought we'd start with some humor. So thank you, Deron, for your background. So some of these you might have seen. They're both Dilbert. I'm not going to be a fan. By the way, when I worked at 3M, we couldn't have Dilbert. We could have the Dilbert, little calendars. We had to all put them away or secretly hide them. So there's like no Dilberts when I was specialist. There seems to be some confusion about what our company culture is. Well, our priorities are honesty, integrity, and return on investment. Which priority is the highest? Well, integrity can by me having both. So you can kind of take away what you'd like out of that. Our greatest strength is our company culture. What's our company culture? Give us a hint. Well, we're fiercely competitive. Oh, do we hide it because we're also modest? So probably could use a little bit of socializing and communication plan. So I have a poll here, and then there's 2 back-to-back. So if you can pull your phone to just go to slido.com, it should be pretty quick. And what I'd like to ask you is, how intentional is your culture? Meaning, is it strategic and plannable and other things? So, and then just go ahead and vote. And if all is right in the world, the Slido poll should populate here. And if it isn't, then we're going to use the good old-fashioned show of hands. So. Yeah, with the better. I think it's an embedded Slido form. Okay. So populating. We'll give like we're in the lower part, which is kind of not surprising and to be expected. Most companies, especially small and mid-sized manufacturers, don't necessarily think of culture as being intentional or strategic. And it really is a needle mover. It's something that allows you to achieve and accelerate your goals and plans. So, I can say there's still some coming in. I don't mean to cut anybody off, but I want to go to the next slide. So, we'll all agree that most of the folks are saying it's basically somewhat intentional. It's recognized as important. New practices are in place, but it isn't embedded in strategic actively. Now, let me ask you about your manufacturing strategy. How intentional is that? You should be able to continue. Is it reactive? Do you have basic planning, structure, proactive aligned, embedded in driving performance with KPIs, weekly or monthly? And we get cut off on the bottom, but I guess people see. So as it's coming in, a little bit more distribution, right? And more people say, yeah, it's manufacturing strategy is something that is embedded, proactive, aligned. We're using it as an intentional lever to drive performance, growth, and meet our objectives. So I'll just challenge you that there's a gap there, right? You can have the best manufacturing strategy, you can have it all laid out, KPIs, closed loop reviews, clear role responsibilities, but if you don't have your culture driving that and allowing you to maximize it, you're missing a lot of potential and maybe even undermining the opportunity to optimize performance. That's the kind of takeaway as a whole. And it did work, so that's a success right there. Never right? All right. So culture. We just have a couple minutes of kind of background and we're going to apply all these things. What is it? How many people have heard culture eats strategy for breakfast? Peter Drucker, right? I hear this quote attributed to all different people, but it is Peter Drucker. Nobody really knows exactly when and where he said it, but it definitely is his. And it really just talks about culture is critical. You can have the best laid strategic plan, values, foundational values, calligraphy on the wall, a beautiful strategic plan, and if you don't have the culture to implement it, it all falls apart, or you don't get the maximum results. I go into a lot of manufacturers every week, sometimes every day, I mean several, and I see all ranges of those. And I will also say culture is the ultimate driving force for success. It allows people, companies to be agile, responsive, resilient, and move forward, even in spite of maybe a misstep or not the best strategic plan or objectives. So it's almost the flip side. So culture, what is it? It's shared values, attitudes, standards, and beliefs that characterize members of an organization and define its nature. That's from Inc.com. There's a lot of descriptions. I just picked a few. Gallup. I'll use a lot of Gallup examples. I'm affiliated with Gallup, and so I have a lot of access to their very good surveys and data. It's really how you live your purpose. So that implies you have to have a purpose, right, for which you're living in. It's what attracts customers and talent, so both sides of the equation, in terms of its loyal advocates and ambassadors. So you're trying to get the right talent that aligns with your culture and values and sells to customers through the value chain. One way of saying it is how employees act when no one is looking. Values are really the foundation of culture. They set the standard for how people think, work, and act together. So developing the values to allow your culture to be enacted and enabled is key. And by the way, you can have all of these slides. The WMEP prides themselves on sharing, so I will give you this, and I have a bunch of links at the end of everything I mentioned that are live links that you can have. So what is it? Culture we just talked about. Why does it matter? It's one of the strongest predictors of performance. So earlier when I asked you, is your strategy intentional? Is your manufacturing, is your culture intentional? Is your manufacturing strategy intentional? If you have culture strategically aligned and enabling your objectives and your strategy, it's one of the biggest predictors shown by data of absenteeism, safety, quality, profitability, performance, for Gallup data. Engaged employees are really like what you want is like psychological owners. You know, some clients have them think like an owner. Well, what does that mean? You really have to win the hearts and minds of people, not just the hands and feet. That does the job, right? You have to really get their hearts and minds, get them engaged, have them really connect. That emotional piece that Ulisses just talked about is so important. You make something, products that matter, you make products that save lives. If you work at Kerry, you're making products that feed people, nourish them, help them recover from a hangover. That's a good idea, very important. The strong workplace culture functions as a differentiator in the marketplace. As AI comes on and starts to standardize and commoditize more and more of what we do as organizations, culture and teams are going to be really the competitive differentiator. And a study in Gallup talks about employees that strongly connect with their company's purpose. So right now it's 4 in 10, which is pretty low, right? For all companies, it's 4 in 10. But if you could move that to 8 in 10, you have a 41% reduction in absenteeism, 50% drop off in safety incidents, and a 33% improvement in quality as predicted analytics. And maybe even more interesting is that connection of culture, personal and professional. And there's a couple of statistics here, but I just want to draw your attention to this one. Those who strongly agree with, I feel connected to my organization culture are less likely to be looking for job opportunities. At this moment, over half of your employees are open to or are actively seeking jobs. So, what does that mean? That means that all it takes is a little bit of a tipping point, right? And if they don't feel connected, heard, listened to, and we have it on their hearts and minds, they're a lot easier to live on. The Wisconsin Manufacturing Report of 2025 just wrapped up. We just did report out. WMEP and WEC does a survey of 400 plus manufacturers, and they do some focus groups to kind of get the insights. And the number one for year-over-year concern is finding quality and skilled people and retaining them. So how do you do that with culture, right? You're attracting people that value your culture, align with your values and culture. You retain them by letting them be part of that success equation. That's your number one lever. It certainly should be intentional. So you know what culture is, why it's important, so what do you do about it? We're going to get to that here in just a minute. Here's a couple of steps, but then we're going to show you what these look like in action. So define it. What is it? It's that nebulous thing. It's hard to put your finger on. I can tell you when I go into different places, you can kind of feel it. You can tell it from the beginning. After 5 or 10 minutes, you know if there's a toxic culture or a problem. You don't always know the values and action and all that. You haven't been there long enough. But you can tell culture if people are walking the talk, if it's part of the DNA, that type of thing. So understand what it is and where you're at. Ask your employees. If you can't sit in a conference room and later you think that you can define your culture. You have to ask people. Doesn't always have to be a big fancy survey or diagnostic. It can be simple little pulse surveys, case surveys, connection. But it has to be from the vantage point of your employees. And then you have to link it to performance, right? Align culture with the strategy of the brand. It has to be holistic. You can't have a strategy that says one thing, innovation, let's say, innovate relentlessly, and then a culture and values that are not supportive of failing fast and forward, correcting and learning from it. So you have to align these things and make sure that everything is connected to get what you want. Measure the current state, have a baseline, align on where you're going to go. What are you going to do about that? And you'll hear some of the steps that both Kerry and Seagrave have taken. Track progress and accountability as owners. You can use KPIs. People often ask me, well, we can't be surveying our employees all the time, taking any. No, don't do that. Use your KPIs that are already your KPIs. Figure out how you're moving the lever. It might be a little indirect, but we'll talk about trust shift, right? That's the metric. How does culture affect that? Well, people are engaged, connected, own it, work together. You're going to end up with more friction. Yes, you can measure happiness, you can measure engagement, but as a manufacturing person, I want to keep those manufacturing metrics in line. And then lead by example. And this often transformation is one of the pieces, right? You have to walk the talk, leaders have to be aligned, they have to follow and reinforce the behavior. And if there's a slip up, and there often challenges and get back right back on track so you don't go backwards. So that's a little bit of background. I'd like to turn over to talk about Kerry and then Seagrave for an example. So with Kerry, going from cultures, so Deron, I will just set this up and I'm going to let you talk about how you worked to build that culture. So you used the Our Voice survey, which is that peer engagement survey. You got the information, and I'll take it from here. And you know the history better than me, so I'll let you set the stage.
Yeah, I'll ask a question real quick. How many of you have your culture statement on the walls of your facilities? Raise your hands. Yeah. How many of your people absolutely know the culture statement? They understand what the culture is supposed to be? How many are living it day in and day out? I think that's what we see in a lot of organizations, right? We have this strategy team that gets together and determines what the culture of our organization is going to be, and we make stickers and we make posters and we put them all over the place. But they don't really understand what the true culture of their organization is. And the culture of the leadership training program at Kerry Ingredients was really, there's an LMS, there's some stuff out there, we've got really, it's self-development. So we didn't have a solid leadership training program. And you can't train leaders using a computer. It just doesn't work. And what we have at the Jackson facility is what many manufacturing facilities have, right? People that were great operators, great technicians, that because they were great at their job, we turned them into leads, and then we turned them into supervisors, and we never gave them any of the tools to be able to manage the people that they are now leading. What does that do to culture in an organization? Right? My leader doesn't trust me because they're doing the job instead of helping me to learn how to do the job. So when I came into Kerry, we looked at the Our Voice survey. Is it one of the semi-annual or biannual surveys that organizations tend to do? Yes. Is there value in it? Absolutely. And one of the takeaways from the Our Voice survey was our leaders need some help in how to lead. They're technically strong, right? We've been doing dry blending and spray drying for 20 years. We're great at making product. We're not great at helping and making people. So when I first came into Kerry, I've got a background in leadership development and training. And the first question that the strategy team asked me was, can't you just build a program yourself? And the answer is yes. I can sit down and I can build an entire program all by myself. But it's not going to work. It's completely ineffective. I need to engage the people that are going to be going through this and the people that are going to be led by the people going through this. So we took a very holistic approach. And this was before I even reached out to WMEP. They have a process that does very much what I did, but I wanted my hands in it and I wanted to do it myself. So,
ready for this? Keep going, or?
Yeah, go ahead and roll. So I started with establishing a steering team, right, and understanding what the leaders of the organization, the strategic team, wanted out of this leadership program. So many of you probably do planning for the next 3 to 5 years. Right? Business plans, building SWOTs, doing all the analysis for your business. I use the exact same tools to build my leadership program. I started with getting the steering team to think about what does the vision of the future look like if we do this really, really well. And we actually created a magazine cover, and I said, tell me what they're going to be saying about our program in 10 years. And this is the cover. You went past it. That was the cover that I came up with. So that was really their vision of what they wanted the program to look like. It gave me a target, and it said, "This is where I need to build a program so that I can be there in the next 3 to 5 years." Once I did that, then I got out into the plan. I started finding people that were in leadership roles, that wanted to be in leadership roles, or that were influential people that may not have any leadership aspirations at all. And I put together a focus group. And the first thing I said was, let's build persona profiles. How many of you have built persona profiles for trying to understand your customers or your consumers? Guess who the consumers of your leadership program are? the people in your organization. So we actually built 3 people. They're fictitious people, but they all have backgrounds and experiences. And that's what we used to kind of tailor the content for our learning and development and our leadership program. Once we did that, we looked at all of the different topics, because there's about 1 million leadership topics out there. And I asked them, what are we great at? What are we okay at? And if we put a little bit more effort into it, we'd be really good. And what are we terrible at? And we did a rose storybook exercise. So I had them take stickies and mark down where we were great, where we weren't great, and where we were really terrible. And we looked at that. Then we built an affinity diagram. And that affinity diagram actually came out into 9 disparate groups of topics. Coincidentally, my strategy team had a baseball analogy. So we built Major League Leadership. We did importance, difficulty, how important is this topic, how hard is it to develop, and then we did some storyboarding. And it was about at that point that we made our decision to go with WMEP. Carol and her team came in and we started to take a look at the content for their leadership program and cut and paste it and align it to our affinity diagram and our storyboard. And that's where we kind of netted out with the program design that we have. And the program is really 9 innings. In the first inning, we do something called an impact map. And the impact map connects what they're going to learn to the work that they're going to be doing and the results that we're looking for from an organizational perspective. So, okay, I'm going to learn how to have courageous conversations. How does that connect to lower rework percentages or higher volume? So we have them make those connections between what they're going to learn and how they're going to execute on it in their day-to-day and how that's going to impact the team and the organization as a whole. And they continue to do that throughout the course of this 9-inning class that we're building. We did some fun stuff, right? If you're going to go in on a baseball analogy, go in on a baseball analogy. Everybody, including Kerry, who's our main facilitator for this guy, got baseball shirts with Major League Leadership and their name on the back, and it says 25 because it's 2025. Next year's we'll have 26 on the back. Every module is baseball themed. We get the get out of here. We had trouble with the curve. Time for substitution. So every inning has, there's no crying in baseball. Every inning has a title, and that title is directly connected to the content. So what does this do for us? It starts to develop and evolve a coaching culture at Jackson. And ultimately, we want to extend that coaching culture beyond Jackson. We're building at the base, and we're going to shove it up. So how do we get the other 6 or 7 facilities in Wisconsin involved and engaged? Next year, we're going to have some of them come to Jackson and be part of the program. And then we extend it beyond that and beyond that until we can get our corporate headquarters, North America headquarters of Hawaii on board, and they can start to drive it to the rest of North America, and ultimately throughout the country.
You're managing out. That's a classic example of managing out by the purpose. Right? And while you were speaking, I went through the clients and kind of bring the program to life. Also, we made sure at the very beginning that we aligned the values. One of the first exercises that we did was to have all the employees aligned to the Kerry values. And
how many are living it day in and day out? I think that's what we see in a lot of organizations, right? We have this strategy team that gets together and determines what the culture of our organization is going to be, and we make stickers and we make posters and we put them all over the place. But they don't really understand what the true culture of their organization is. And the culture of the leadership training program at Kerry was really, there's an LMS, there's some stuff out there, we've got really, it's self-development. So we didn't have a solid leadership training program. And you can't train leaders using a computer. just doesn't work. And what we have at the Jackson facility is what many manufacturing facilities have, right? People that were great operators, great technicians, that because they were great at their job, we turned them into leads, and then we turned them into supervisors, and we never gave them any of the tools to be able to manage the people that they are now leading. What does that do to culture in an organization? Right? My leader doesn't trust me because they're doing the job instead of helping me to learn how to do the job. So when I came into Kerry, we looked at the Our Voice survey. Is it one of the semi-annual or biannual surveys that organizations tend to do? Yes. Is there value in it? Absolutely. And one of the takeaways from the Our Voice survey was our leaders need some help in how to lead. They're technically strong, right? We've been doing dry blending with spray drying for 20 years. We're great at making product. We're not great at helping and making people. So when I first came into Kerry, I've got a background in leadership development and training. And the first question that the strategy team asked me was, can't you just build a program yourself? And the answer is yes. I can sit down and I can build an entire program all by myself. But it's not going to work. It's completely ineffective. I need to engage the people that are going to be going through this and the people that are going to be led by the people going through this. So we took a very holistic approach. And this was before I even reached out to WMEP. They have a process that does very much what I did, but I wanted my hands in it, and I wanted to do it myself. So, Carol, if you
Are you ready for that? Keep going, or?
Yeah, go ahead and roll. So I started with establishing a steering team, right, and understanding what the leaders of the organization, the strategic team, wanted out of this leadership program. So many of you probably do.
Exactly from one of our meetings, where we did the survey, we did a couple of readouts and understanding, report out, connection, formed a culture champions council, kind of like a lean steering team model, which by the way, and we're merging because they're really kind of hand in hand. Creating action plans, sharing the results, and developing a communication plan. The previous speaker said you cannot over communicate or something along those lines, which is true. So I'll just go through these and then hand it over to you, Ulisses. So this is literally an example of how we did some affinity connection. It was pretty raw input from people from the diagnostic, right? We did it in a very personal way. A lot of people really shared from their heart. We came up with a couple of things to do right away. Some community engagement and celebration culture. Seagrave kind of felt that they maybe took a step back from that. And they have such an important product. People work there with their heart and soul, right? I mean, there's a connection to why people work there and how long they work there. So we did that, but we also had to have our eyes on moving the needle. So we quickly kicked off, many of you will recognize the production board. But what we did was get people talking, connected, team building, have them do the stand-ups, which we're working on, managing daily improvements, lean and production board. And moving to focus on how many trucks are we shipping, right? We're not only having fun, we're doing that, we're driving that culture of ownership engagement. And speaking of engagement, another really important piece of the team was getting out in the community. There was no shortage of volunteers to drive the trucks into the community, have the events like touch a truck, go to the local football games. You're recruiting for employees at the same time as you're building a brand. So that was also driving that culture of engagement, community outreach that came from the survey. And then this is a quick communication plan. Standard work, communicate, identify your messages, stories, examples, have people own it. I think there's a funny one here that says something on that. Yeah, put it on the backroom doors, right? I mean, that's where we put some of this, like get it out there, make sure people know. Somebody said magnets at the last discussion, that's another piece. But this is really a standard, consistent communication. So I'd like you to share a little bit about the journey. I just want to do a slide that can go back and forth, but what are your thoughts on how things are going and where you're headed with cultural change?
We are about 6 months into this from the first interaction with people, I would say. And since the beginning, there's only one mandate that I put in place, and it's that it has to drive us to be better. We're not doing that for fun, we're doing that to be a better business. And better business translates into a whole lot of stuff, including more money. And it has to get to that point. That's the only thing I'm mandating you to do. The rest, you decide. You know? So we take an approach that's really bottoms up, which is completely opposite what I sought to do about these 7 years ago when I started thinking about recruiting. I was with, I'm going to bring all these big euros in cultural change and bring them here and never to shake the place upside down. And at the end of the shaking, I have a breakup. Didn't quite have the guts to pull it, to be honest with you. But I realized that it's much more about them than me. And I hope I'm giving them as much leeway to do that. And I see they are taking it. What do you think, Kerry?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And you're balancing the need, revenue, profit, pay for everything we do. So you can't just party all the time, right?
And it is working. It is working. I see people smile more. People are more engaged in dealing with the problem instead of pushing it to the side. People are more responsive. People are stretching their hand to help each other. Things that we always did, but not to the extent we're doing now. Things that people did because it's expected by someone else that they do that. Now they're expecting themselves. And we're starting that. This is infancy. This is we're still learning how to walk, I would say. Maybe a lot of crawling, but we still cannot run. And it's a long journey. And I think people that are engaged on that recognize it. The people that are leading that way, we have a small core group that basically drives that. You know, they just tell me what they did, it's the way it should be. Was identified by a group of 20-some sample people that we you know, across the business, trying to identify people that can represent not just themselves, but also others around them. Mostly informal leadership, not formal leadership. And they elect these guys, and it was an election. You know, they voted names, etc., to pick up who would be their leaders, and in that journey. And these people have been really embraced that to the point to jeopardize their daily business to some extent. But they are really driving into that. I think we have a very, very strong culture that has a lot of good stuff. But we also have a very strong culture that has stuff that doesn't work anymore, that doesn't jive anymore with the people that we're bringing in the business, with the next generation, with the next leadership, with the next employee of Seagrave, no matter what they do. And that's what we need to change. We need to keep the good stuff and look elsewhere for what we need to do now. And they're embracing it. I think they're bringing back, for example, the culture of being part of the community, not just being there, but really being part of it. They are bringing back things like we have to get more communication. I thought we communicate a lot. Obviously, I was wrong. And they're teaching me that by how they are driving that aspect into the business. So it's amazing to see that the connection between certain things that you might not value, you might not believe make a difference, and how they actually do. We ship 100 products per year. That's it. So super week, more or less, right? So when one of them doesn't go, it's a big deal. One of them is late for any reason, it's a big deal. And they average nowadays over $1 million a piece. So it's not just a big deal because you lost 1% of your volume in one thing that didn't happen, but it's also lost $1 million of revenue. It didn't really lose, it just gets later, but you know, in any way affects the bottom line. And everybody is committed to that, not just me. They want to make it happen. And then they go do a lot of bad stuff to make it happen. And they are now realizing that they can make it happen without doing the bad stuff. without hiding stuff, without pushing responsibility about something to the next guy. Try to avoid the blame for not having achieved it, etc., etc., etc. And that is already translated to cheap report bonus, which pays for the parties, right?
Right.
Which is what we need to do to be able to create the additional money, to have all these other things that we need. We need parties too, right?
Right, you can afford a party when you ship $1 million truck exactly from one of our meetings. Exactly from one of our meetings. Exactly from one of our meetings, where we did the survey, we did a couple of readouts and understanding, report out connection, formed a culture champions council, kind of like a lean steering team model, which by the way, and we're merging because they're really kind of hand in hand. Creating action plans, sharing the results, and developing a communication plan. The previous speaker said you cannot over-communicate or something along those lines, which is true. So I'll just go through these and then hand it over to you, Ulisses. So this is literally an example of how we did some affinity connection. It was pretty raw input from people from the diagnostic, right? We did it in a very personal way. A lot of people really shared from their heart. We came up with a couple of things to do right away. Some community engagement and celebration culture. Seagrave kind of felt that they maybe took a step back from that. And they have such an important product. People work there with their heart and soul, right? I mean, there's a connection to why people work there and how long they work there. So we did that, but we also had to have our eyes on moving the needle. So we quickly kicked off, many of you will recognize the production board. But what we did was get people talking, connected, team building, have them do the stand-ups, which we're working on, managing daily improvements, lean and production board. And moving to focus on how many trucks are we shipping, right? So we're not only having fun, we're doing that, we're driving that culture of ownership engagement. And speaking of engagement, another really important piece of the team was getting out in the community. There was no shortage of volunteers to drive the trucks into the community, have the events like touch a truck, go to the local football games. You're recruiting our employees at the same time as you're building a brand. So that was also driving that culture of engagement, community outreach that came from the survey. And then this is a quick communication plan. Standard work, communicate, identify your messages, stories, examples, have people own it. I think there's a funny one here that says something on that. Yeah, put it on the bathroom doors, right? I mean, that's where we put some of this, like get it out there, make sure people know. Somebody said magnets at the last discussion, that's another piece. But this is really a standard, consistent communication. So I'd like you to share a little bit about the journey. I just want to do a slide that can go back and forth, but what are your thoughts on how things are going and where you're headed with cultural change?
We are about 6 months into this, from the first interaction with people before, I would say. And since the beginning, there's only one mandate that I put in place, and it's that it has to drive. And that's a totally different perception that the customers that come in are realizing we are getting there. And to me, that is even better than 100 trucks per year, a measure of how much the overall culture of the people there is changing. And it's changing relatively quickly.
Right, and once you win those hearts and minds, then people follow and they'll make the truck. So that's the part that you can start out, but you really need some concrete evidence to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And I'm glad that I noticed that it's really great. We have an outside party that comes in, and that's kind of a baseline measure, right? And so behind us, I have some panel questions just in case we didn't cover these things, but I'd like to ask, did the audience have any questions? You can do it one of two ways. Either, I think you can go back and listen to your Slido if you'd like to type it, but we're a small enough group if you just want to raise your hand, and we'll either get you a microphone or you can talk loudly if you have any questions. So either put it in the Slido or raise your hand, or yes, you have a question.
With your programs that you put into place, is there anything you've done to change your onboarding process of your new hires?
Not yet.
Okay.
We've been changing that a lot over the years because obviously like everybody else was
Yeah,
on board, right?
yeah.
And we tried a million different things. You know, we make it big, we make it small, we make it concentrated, spread out. You know, we tried every recipe in the book to see which one would give us the cake. But we haven't yet got to that. What we're doing different about that, and that's about what I'm saying, we are giving the new employees, I call them mentor, but people they don't like that word, so we don't call them mentor.
Yeah.
Someone that they can refer to, that they can be maybe like a big brother more than a mentor. Someone they can go and, hey, is that okay to do that? Or can I do that? Etc. Our environment is scary. You know, Kerry has been there. Every single he touches is big, heavy, and noisy, and if he falls, he hurts someone. So for someone that's, especially very new employees, first job, second job, it can be pretty scary. And they need someone that they can get some comfort, that they can do certain things with them.
And I would just add that part of being out in the community is extending that employee value proposition and promoting that so that the onboarding would follow on. But if you had a.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, so I just wondered, we've changed our onboarding over the 10 years that I've been with Capo as well, and it's kind of to meet our hires where they're at.
Yeah.
It's always evolving, but one of the things that we've had in place now for probably 5 years is we have an ambassador program that we tie our new hires to.
Yeah.
So, and these are the people, like you're on your culture committee, or, I'm sorry, I said wrong, but these are groups, but these are the people that want to represent the organization and want to make sure that our new hires get introductions to how our business works all the way through, not just the department that they've been hired to. Now, that's only on our corporate side, we're hoping 2026 to really expand that further into our manufacturing, our direct and our indirect workforce. So, yeah, so ambassadors want to do it. So I just wanted to share that, and I just wanted to hear some people thinking.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, and this is really kind of a dialogue, and that is so important because the more connections people have early on, the less likely they are to leave in those vulnerable early stages of entrepreneurship. Yes, there was a question.
Yeah, you just mentioned that your customers have been giving you good feedback. So I'm just curious, do you publicize at all to your customers that you're making this cultural renaissance, or is that, or have you just kind of realized that naturally over time?
Not by design at all. Yeah, when they come back with comments like that, then I get it much view about, you know, yeah, that's part of what we're trying to change. You know, we have an engagement with the outside consulting group to help us, guide us through this, but it's really bottoms up, effort, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not advertising, so to speak, but when they notice and comment, that's when we're talking.
So unsolicited, actually, which is kind of cool, right? Because it's just like, oh, I've been here before, it's very different. So, did you have a question?
Yeah, with your focus, either focus on culture, if you lost any high performing employees, either their choice or your choice, due to the culture.
I don't think we've lost any. I think one of the questions we asked in the first session, first inning, was how many of you are here because you want to be here, and how many are here because you were told you had to come to leadership training, right? I probably had about 75% where I needed to be here, my boss told me I had to go, and about 20%. And I followed that up with surveys, and that has definitely shifted. So now I'm seeing people that are excited about coming to class when, 6 months ago, they're like, oh, I gotta go to this stupid baseball training. Right? And now they're excited about, hey, next inning, we're gonna do a simulation, we get to climb Mount Everest. Right? So they're now engaged and excited. And what we have them do is they get a learning partner in between every session, and they talk about what they learned, and they also meet with their boss. And they share, these are the things that I learned, and this is how I want to practice those skills. And because of that, we're seeing actually a retention increase for the teams, for the people that are going to the program. Because the work that we do isn't building fire trucks. We're taking ingredients, we're pouring them into a blender, we're putting them into a bag, and it's not.
What kind of retention? Just employment retention?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We're seeing lower turnover.
Yeah.
On the teams with leaders that want to keep this program and actually practicing the skills. So while we haven't lost anybody, I think just the opposite. We've retained.
Sounds like that's the clue to be done, so, that's very subtle. So I hope I got, it didn't seem like the questions were coming through, but I think you guys are comfortable asking and answering them. We're gonna hand out, as we leave, the culture action plan. I wasn't sure how the timing would go, so you'll walk away with a roadmap. It's also in here with examples and what to do. And in wrapping up, I'd like to just acknowledge a summary. The culture drives performance. Make it intentional, just like you do your KPIs for operations, which I also feel are important. And then sustain momentum, making sure everybody walks the talk and models that behavior that you want. When culture and strategy move together, that's when you really get that impact. And then as promised, here are all the resources and references, live links. I just want to make a shout out to our partner at Egan, WMEP Workplace Solutions. It's a lot of the training was based on and in combination with WMEP. And he'll be handing out your action plans at the door. And these are all live links. And if you want more information, you want to explore something, you want to springboard, feel free to reach out and let me know. I'm glad to connect. That's part of what we do at WMEP, have touch points. So I'd really like to connect and help you if I can. So thank you very much to our panelists. I'm going to start our